We're in Zurich this episode, with the gang lamenting a lack of luck in the lady department. Not helping there is that the only single woman is a dummy employed by Zenigata. After taking care of that, the gang head back to their hotel, where an old man switches the room numbers to meet with them and stop another Zenigata trap. Fujiko introduces them, and the old man takes them through a plot to steal a stack of gold from a Swiss bank. There's cameras everywhere, and the manager is the only one who can access the computer lock, so they'll have to go underground. Goemon takes care of the floor, and the gang transport the gold into their getaway van. Hiding in a warehouse, they're instructed to melt the gold, then pour it into a mould resembling the van, and paint it the exact same colours. Border Patrol is none the wiser, but Zenigata has a blockade ready, though only finds a pepper bomb waiting for him. The gang redirect their initial route to Nice via a detour through Mont Blanc, but Zenigata catches up again and takes out one of their tyres. Fujiko takes the old man and the others serve as a distraction, tricking Zenigata into jumping over a cliff edge into the sea. Too bad Lupin didn't think of a way back up himself, so they have to do the same. On top of that, Goemon suspects that the old man is tipping Zenigata off, seemingly confirmed when Zenigata's waiting in the van. Goemon decides to take a chunk for himself, but they discover that the body has already been swapped back. Fujiko and the old man celebrate getting one over on Lupin, but the old man has drugged Fujiko's brandy, intending to take the gold for himself. Not only does he not need a wheelchair, he's also the bank manager. The gang make it to Nice, and are more worried about food than gold for the moment. They spot the van, and Lupin recognises the manager. In the ensuing argument, Fujiko steals the van and the gang chase her, but she ends up driving into the sea. She's alright, but the van is lost to Zenigata. I enjoyed all the steps of smuggling the gold being shown here. We're also starting to see Fujiko's more treacherous side coming out in this episode, willing to work with the others until she gets the opportunity to grab it all for herself. Not that it worked out for her this time. The gang witness an earthquake in Italy, caused by an artificial earthquake generator. The next target is the Tower of Pisa, so they listen in on a crisis meeting. Zenigata is convinced that Lupin is behind it, having been tipped off that Lupin's in Italy. He's wrong, of course, as they've received a video message from the culprit. Dr. Paolo, a disgraced earthquake researcher, demands they drop a ransom south of Elba Island. The gang decide to intercept the payment, but are interrupted by Zenigata. A dolphin takes out Zenigata's boat and carries the case off, but thanks to their struggle, Paolo doesn't get any money. He demands double the ransom, and Zenigata faces deportation for escalating the crisis. Lupin, listening in, reveals he placed a tracker on the first case, and they track Paolo's base down to Naples. That night, the gang invade the base but are trapped by Paolo, who mistakes them for spies. He decides to activate the earthquake machine just in time for the money to arrive alongside Zenigata. Lupin breaks free and fights Paolo, with Goemon cutting open a hole to flood the lab. Lupin grabs the case as Paolo sets the lab to self-destruct, though the money is lost in the sea again as they escape. Fujiko at least manages to get some of it, and Zenigata receives honours for his role in stopping Paolo and saving the Tower of Pisa. Certainly a unique way of having both sides of the gang work towards finding a bigger enemy here. Often they'll call a truce, or Lupin will just be written as more benevolent. So it's not a bad thing seeing him out for his own cash grab rather than out of any altruistic reasons. I think one criticism I do have here is there seems to be a lot of reused animation, mostly noticeable in the scenes at the crisis meeting, but it doesn't detract too much from the episode. Three guesses where we are this episode. Lupin has his eyes on the mask of Tutankhamen, but Jigen and Goemon don't seem too enthused at the idea of stealing it. Goemon notes a shadow of death on Zantet's head, and Jigen warns him of a curse inscribed on one of the artefacts found in Tutankhamun's tomb, resulting in them both deciding to sit this one out. Disguising as a cleaner, Lupin plants a device on the case that allows him to airlift it out that night. Zenigata learns of the heist, but is currently in Israel, meaning he can't get a flight to Egypt due to the Camp David Accords still being about a year away at this point. Meanwhile, Lupin celebrates despite Jigen and Goemon's unease. He puts the mask on and starts hearing strange music and having odd visions. The others knock him out and remove the mask, but he looks possessed. Jigen goes over the history of Howard Carter's expedition and how it ended with a lot of them dead. Though it does embellish it a bit and say Carter died in 1923 yelling about the curse. He died in 1939 for anyone curious. They suggest returning the mask despite Fujiko's objections, but Lupin is gone. They find him atop a pyramid, hallucinating that he is Tutankhamen. Zenigata arrives, presumably having taken an indirect flight, or just being crazy enough to have managed to organise a direct flight, and climbs the pyramid, witnessing Lupin levitating. It's actually a glider that Fujiko uses to lift Lupin away. Fujiko agrees with the others that the mask should be returned and watches over Lupin while they do so. She runs into Zenigata in the hotel lobby, but when they return, Lupin is gone, having forced himself out of the handcuffs rather than just slipping out like he usually does. The mask is returned and the shadow on Zantetsuken disappears. Lupin appears before Fujiko in the Valley of the Kings, back to normal as they leave Zenigata hunting for him in one of the tombs. Another entertaining episode, and who doesn't enjoy a good Mummy's Curse story? This one is also the first mention of the whole Zantetsuken shadow that indicates something is going to go horribly wrong. Not sure whether this would be considered a mythical episode too, but there's clearly something at work with that mask. Back in Italy this time, planning a heist on the crime boss Don Martino, owner of Champion Horse St. Junior. Due to suspicions about his crimes, he's having his possessions secretly transported out of the country by train to Paris, and the gang intend to intercept. Zenigata becomes wise to it when he discovers a map that Jigen left behind, though he isn't wise to Lupin or Fujiko's disguises. He has no luck finding them either. Fujiko tries to charm her way around Don Martino, but the story she gives doesn't add up and she's attacked. Zenigata saves the day. Or rather, Lupin disguises Zenigata. Then the real one appears and chases Lupin down and straight out of a train car. The plan goes into action when the train enters the Simplon tunnel. Lupin uncouples the train car and Jigen and Goemon transport it using a truck with convertible wheels. Don Martino is still aboard, however, and uncouples the train car thanks to it being automated itself. Worse still, the brake controls are damaged in the ensuing shootout. Lupin instructs the others to destroy the bridge before they hit an oncoming train. They do so and everyone but Don Martino bails, deciding their life is worth more than some treasures. Lupin looks on pitifully before escaping with St. Junior, though he only gets a small amount of the treasure. They bet it on St. Junior in the Arc de Triomphe, but that ends up going south when Zenigata chases Lupin off course. I do feel like I'm repeating myself a bit when I say that an episode is good in these videos, but there really haven't been any bad ones in this first batch. Don Martino works as a victim of Lupin's heist because it's a case of someone worse than the gang being stolen from, so it's easier not to feel guilty about it. One could also argue that he's an example of what Lupin himself could become if he let his greed get the better of him too badly. Maybe there's a reason Fujiko doesn't push the Arsene button too much. Next time we take a look at traditional Japanese art, a hidden past, and our first Christmas special. Until then.